that was the first time that I was able to see and to use huge ROVs that the industry used to inspect the ocean all the way down to several thousands of meters. And I started to search for and look for the consumer version of this. And when I didn't find any, I started to ask the questions, why isn't this available for regular people, or as any other technology has a consumer version?
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 110. Ever wonder what it would be like to pilot an underwater drone? Well, thanks to the efforts of today's guest, we now have that opportunity. Christine Spiten is the co-founder and chief global strategist for Blueye Robotics, a Norwegian-based company that seeks to develop and sell the world's finest drones for underwater exploration. The company launched a new product, the Blueye Pioneer, a prosumer personal drone capable of reaching depths of 150 meters and providing an unparalleled user experience. Christine is here to talk about Blueye Robotics, the new Blueye Pioneer underwater drone, and the rewards of exploring firsthand our oceans and seas. Now, before we hear from Christine, if you like the Drone Radio Show and want to do a good thing, consider donating to my funding campaign on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production and expand its offerings. You can join this effort and get some really cool stuff by going to patreon.com/droneradioshow. Now let's hear how a small underwater drone will democratize our oceans. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Christine to introduce herself.
My name is Christine Spiten, and I am the co-founder and the chief global strategist of Blueye Robotics.
Christine, can you tell us about Blueye Robotics?
So Blueye Robotics is a company developing and providing underwater drones for prosumers. What it means is it's actually open up for a whole new era of exploration for people who have not been able to ever gone down to the depth of the ocean before. So this drone is taking you all the way down to 150 meters below the surface of the ocean.
How is the product different than what is out in the marketplace today?
So the Blueye Pioneer is offering you the professional performance of the industrial ROVs that has been existing for the industry and for the professional markets for decades, but to a totally different price point, and which are highly complex and difficult to handle and accessible for private consumers or prosumers today. So we have wrapped this professional performance into a user-friendly design that is appealing to private consumers today. So the reason why we target prosumers is because it provides you with a professional performance. Same time, it is very user-friendly and cool and fun to use.
How large is the Blueye Pioneer?
The Blueye Pioneer is about the size of, I would say, like big aerial drone. It's 25 times 35 times 45 centimeters, and its weight is about 7 kilos. And so you can carry it in your carry-on or your hand luggage if you go on any trip or adventure, which makes it really handy to bring along and actually use it a lot, which is what we hope for, that people will do. And the design of the drone itself is really appealing. It almost looks like Apple product for the ocean.
How is it controlled, and how does it actually work in the water?
That is the cool part about the Blueye Pioneer, is that it's so intuitive because you just connect it to your own smart device, whether that's your smartphone or your tablet or computer. And you can either control it from touchscreen or you can use a wireless controller like the Xbox controller. And what that is, it's sort of adding the gaming feeling of using the drone itself. So it's pretty much similar to aerial drones. And the cool thing is we have made what we call a digital diving mask, which is a mask that you could put your iPhone or your smartphone into the lid, and you can put it on your head, and it sort of takes you down to the depth where the drone is.
So it actually makes you feel like you're seeing exactly through the eyes of the drone, totally immersed in the water?
Exactly. And that is also why we call the Blueye Pioneer your eyes below the surface. Because that is actually what it is. It is an extension of your eyes down to depth and to a whole new world that most people haven't been able to see before.
Now there's a cord that's attached to the drone. What is that used for?
Yeah, that is the tether. The drone is tethered up to a buoy or a surface unit that you can throw out in the ocean as it floats, or you can keep it next to you if you don't have a boat. And so this tether is transmitting the video signal and control signals up to the surface because there is a bandwidth limitation of about 20 kilobytes through water, and that is how much you're able to transmit through water. So that wouldn't do for video signals. That's the reason why we have this wire, but the whole experience itself is wireless because you don't have to deal with a tether. It's in the water, it's going from the buoy and down to the drone itself, and you stay in full control of the drone. So you can make the drone come up to the surface and return to you, and then the buoy will just follow along.
Tell us about the batteries and how long they last.
The tether is only transmitting the control signals and video signals, so that means the batteries are on board the drone itself, and they are providing you with at least 2 hours of battery life.
Well, that sounds like quite a bit of time for anyone that's going to be out there using it.
It is, and the batteries are also replaceable, so you can take them out and put in some new ones, and then you can have fun for many more hours if you want to.
If by chance someone exhausts their battery, does the drone automatically come up, or do you have to pull it in through the tether?
The drone is designed so that it's positively buoyant. So if you lose control for some reason, it will return to the surface, and you will be able to just bring it on to your boat or to shore and then switch the batteries there if you have any extra.
That's a great feature. Now, which markets or users do you think is going to want to use the drone most?
The Blueye Pioneer was created to give anyone the opportunity to go where most people have never gone, which is 150 meters below the surface of the ocean. And as I told you, the Pioneer is your eyes below the ocean surface and opens up a new world that up until now has been reserved for oceanographers and scientists. So where we see the Pioneer being used is for everything from whale watching and exploring marine wildlife to something completely unseen. And given the power and technology integrated in the Pioneer, we also see that it's having a lot of practical commercial applications. So for instance, boat owners can use it to inspect their boats or their anchors. And it can be used for harbor inspections and ship inspections, and not the least, search and rescue agencies are among our early customers. And they will use it to improve their success of their efforts and assets in water conditions before sending in divers, search for people, for instance. And then there's the environmental organizations who are using the Pioneer to explore ocean pollution or monitor around vulnerable ecosystems in the oceans. You know, everywhere we go, we meet a lot of great ideas on how the Pioneer can be used. And since the Pioneer was built and tested in harsh conditions of the Arctic Ocean, we know that it's durable and powerful enough for all types of these applications. And we are just providing you with an eye to explore, and there's really no limitation. I think the curiosity of the user will be the only limitation for what you really can use the Pioneer for.
I think most people understand what it takes to design an airborne drone. But what are some of the special considerations when designing something that needs to go underwater, especially at the depths that you're talking about?
So you mentioned the depth. Of course, that requires a special design that can withstand the pressure, the high pressure, as the depth increases. And we have also focused on having a really sleek and hydrodynamic design of the ocean, which makes it move really naturally in the ocean conditions, such as strong currents and also up and down in the vertical segment. And the third thing is the camera of the drone itself, because it's quite different than a camera on an aerial drone. because in the ocean, you really need to think of the light sensitivity. So our camera is really light sensitive, which means that the deeper you go, the red tones or the red colors starts to fade out and everything becomes pretty much blue or greenish. And so we have designed a camera that adds back the red tones into the pictures and the video that you get up to your unit. So that is really important. And of course, since you are not able to see the drone as you control it, the latency of the camera is also really important. So it's really low latency, which means that what you see is the real-time movement of the drone. So keeping the latency as low as possible and keeping the camera light sensitive as possible so that you actually get the real colors and get the real feeling of being down in the ocean. That is really important. And then it's the hydrodynamic design, of course, that it's rugged, robust, and can withstand the ocean conditions.
And probably designed to withstand poor pilots bumping into objects down there too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what kind of impact does it have on its environment? I mean, how do fish react to it when it's moving close to them?
So we have been driving the drone among a lot of different fish and seals and orcas and humpback whales. And we have never had any negative reaction from any of these species. And so we know that the drone itself is quite quiet. It's not making too much noise. And we're also, when we were designing the drone, we were actually thinking of the look of it and also the choice of colors. Because in the ocean, there are certain colors that the marine wildlife reacts to. So, for instance, the color yellow signalizes poison. So that is something that we were not aware of. I didn't think of in the beginning, but that we have learned a lot about. So today, the Blueye Pioneer is white and blue, which are really friendly colors and not threatening to any marine wildlife. And then, of course, the noise. We have made the noise as low as possible, but we experienced that fish is more attracted to the drone than afraid or reacting in any other way. So the drone is equipped with LED lights, which I think there's some species or some fish who are really attracted to. And besides that, I think they're just curious and then they come over and say hello and then they swim around it and it doesn't seem to disturb anything.
Other than the camera, does the Blueye come with sensors or special controls that give it some extra benefit underwater?
So we have made the controls so that you can set a fixed depth and also you can set a fixed heading. So that means that when you find something that you really want to have a closer look at or explore more in depth, you can let go of the whole control and the drone will actually stay there. Besides that, we have sensors for pressure because the interface of our Blueye app is always telling you how deep you are and what heading you are and where the drone is positioned. So it has temperature sensors and then, of course, the pressure sensor. And besides that, we're looking into implementing more sensors in the future. But for this first model, it's really about the eye, about what you see and explore.
Let's talk about the user experience for the Blueye Pioneer.
Sure.
Can you talk about what makes that special?
Yeah, so there's 3 key points that sort of differentiate the Blueye from any other drone in the market. And so the first one is how the hydrodynamic design is making it move smoothly in the water, and it's really based on several years world-leading competence from the University of NTNU, where Blueye is based out of. So the design is the first key point, and the second one is the control system, because it's really important that the user stays in full control, because you can't see the drone when you're down at 150 meters depth. You need to know that the drone is acting exactly the way you want it. So the thrusters are really powerful and the control system is really well. And then the third point is the camera and the light sensitivity of the camera. So to sum that up, it's the design of the drone itself, and it's the control system, keeping the user in full control, and it's the light-sensitive camera, the way it's adding back true color to your video or images.
Can you talk more about the camera's ability to add, would you call it true color, back into the images?
Yeah, so of course it's a combination of the light that the drone is equipped with. Without the light, it doesn't really help with the camera, but having the light down at the depth where there's actually completely pitch dark, because lower than about 30, 40 meters, there's pretty much just dark. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing colorful down there. So of course, we have these special algorithms in our camera that adds back especially the red color to the images that you get to your unit. So I have seen other videos from underwater drones, and the video looks pretty much green. And sometimes people manage to get it purple. It's overcompensating. What we have done is to hit a sweet spot where you get the true colors back to the imagery.
On June 28th, Blueye announced the availability of the Blueye Pioneer as the first prosumer drone that allows most people to explore what they've never been able to do before, and to get an eye below the surface and access to a world that has been primarily in the realm of researchers and scientists. Of course, the biggest question is, how much does it cost?
So we're now in a pre-sale phase towards shipping in 2018. And so the drone is now up for purchase for $3,000 on our webpage. And then we start shipping in 2018. And actually, we're coming to Santa Cruz and to California to demonstrate the Blueye for the first time in September. So that will be one of the last models before the final production model, and we will bring it to a new tech event in Santa Cruz.
On the Blueye Robotics website, there's a story of a test run of the Blueye Pioneer under the ice in the Arctic Circle. Did your team uncover anything that they were surprised about?
Yeah, actually, the group of students saw a type of octopus that has never been seen in the Arctic before. I do not recall the exact name of this octopus type, but it's all in our webpage. So that was pretty cool. And the other time was when my colleague, our chief software developer, Jonas, he was going to Tromsø, and he was using the Blueye Pioneer among orcas and humpback whales. And so that was during the season in November. When people go whale watching, most of what you see is pretty much the fins above the surface. And then sometimes you see they make these big blows. But with an underwater drone, you can actually see how they interact and how they chase the skulls of fish among them and eat them. And this is really cool to have a look at. So the whole video is on our webpage. And just by chance, it happened that a humpback whale mom with her calf was swimming past. And so that also shows, I think, in a pretty good way that none of these animals are disturbed or afraid in any way of the underwater drone. And that is really cool.
Do you have a personal story of using the Blueye that you can share with us?
The first milestone, actually, for Blueye was when I was crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and that was just 10 weeks after we founded the company. And so we knew that the sailing or this crossing was coming up, and so that gave us a really speed ahead on the development side. So in only 10 weeks, we were actually able to put together the first prototype, and I brought it with me down to Senegal in Africa and onto this sailboat of 14 women. And there was marine biologists and scientists and artists and spokespeople who were crossing the Atlantic Ocean to map marine litter and to investigate the connection between marine litter and people's health. And so that was just an amazing feeling to actually have our first prototype, and that is almost 2 years back. And it was huge, and it was bumpy, and it was big and hard to handle, but it didn't matter because it was able to do what it was supposed to do. So when we sailed across the ocean, we got to Brazil, and there was a ton of shipwrecks off the coast and a lot of litter. And we could only go down to about 20, 25 meters depth. And when I had the Blueye Pioneer with me, we were able to go down to, I think at the time it was about 50 or 60. So we map marine litter and trash around these shipwrecks that we otherwise wouldn't be able to see, and so give this data back to the university that we were collaborating with. So each day on this expedition, we were mapping the litter that we found on the surface, and there was 3 weeks with no communication or no sight of land. And we were trawling the ocean surface every day at the same time. We were taking water samples, and we did analyze our blood from our blood samples so we could see the different toxins in our bodies. And so we were having a lot of discussions around how marine litter is actually affecting our health. And I think the first step is, the Blueye is not going to make those analyses for you, but they can map where are these big occasions of marine litter. So being able to map it and also being able to see where it potentially comes from, what it is, and give that data back to the scientists.
I find it noteworthy that the drone spurred some discussion among your team about the conditions underwater. That's sort of what you were hoping to achieve on a broader scale, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think when you have a drone that goes in the water, you have an eye, and you're going to see a lot of fantastic, exciting and beautiful marine wildlife and the ecosystem. But you're also going to get an understanding of how vulnerable it is, because you're going to see a lot of stuff that doesn't belong to the ocean, that's gotten there from people. So I think it's going to serve very useful just to open up people's eyes in that sense. I mean, that's one application of the drone is for environmental organizations to use it in that way. And the other applications like search and rescue, we just formed a partnership with the Norwegian Search and Rescue Authority. So they are going to use it on board their vessels. We didn't have that in mind when we made the first drone, but these partnerships and the collaborators have sort of like come to us because there's actually a crucial need for a tool to deal with these challenges or with this need for an eye or to inspect or to monitor. So that is very interesting, and we're happy that our technology can actually do something that is very useful in addition to explore and to learn and to have a great lot of fun.
So let's talk a little about you and how you got to this point. Again, on your website, there's a video that opens with you saying that you've always been drawn to the water. Can you tell us what that means?
Ever since I was a little kid, I spent most of the summers at our summer house, and I was most of the time below the ocean surface. So even before I could swim, I was jumping into the water. And I remember when I got my first scuba mask, and I could actually lay for hours just on the surface and peek down into this world of strange animals and fish and things I'd never seen before. And so I think it started for me at a really early age. And after that, I started to study engineering, and I realized very quickly that I had to work with something that had to do with the ocean. And I was getting more and more concerned about the ocean health and about keeping the ocean clean. It was providing me with so much fun and so much activities. I was an active sailor. I started to go wave surfing and kite surfing. And I just thought that the more time I spent in the ocean, the more I realized how poorly we humans treat the ocean by polluting it and by throwing garbage and plastics into it. And so I started to investigate, what can I do to make a contribution and make a difference? Then back in 2012, I had an internship with Kongsberg and Statoil, because I thought it wasn't fair that I was just criticizing, the industry that I thought was making harm to the ocean without going deeper into it to try to understand. So I worked for them on a project of environmental monitoring, and that was the first time that I was able to see or got the chance to see and to use huge ROVs, which is remotely operated vehicles that the industry used to inspect the ocean all the way down to several thousands of meters. And I started to search for and look for the consumer version of this. And when I didn't find any, I started to ask the questions, why isn't this available for regular people or for consumers? As any other technology has a consumer version. And so 2 years after that internship, I was doing my master degree, and I wanted it to be about the application areas for small underwater drones. And so I made my own based on a kit that I found. And I was implementing sensors so that I could measure and monitor around coral reefs. And then I did the field work in Brazil. I also did the field work in Tanzania and Zanzibar. And so there's a lot of common challenges between Tanzania and Brazil. And that was that both of these countries are really depending on their coral reefs and that they stay healthy. And in both countries, they're threatened by climate change and by human interaction and pollution. And so the coral reefs play a vital role, both for the ecosystem and for the fishing industry, but also as wave barriers. So if you remove the coral reefs, there are huge land areas that are just going to erode out in the ocean, and people are living in these areas. So there's so many challenges, and it's a really complex picture. But I decided I want to start with coming up with a tool, coming up with a technology that can provide these people at least with an eye so that they can go down and understand. Because I think that to take care of the ocean, you need to understand it. And to understand it, the first step really is to see what's down there.
And just so we can really appreciate the difference, can you talk about the industrial grade ROVs and how they compare to the Blueye Pioneer?
Yeah, the professional ROVs are not something that the private consumer would ever be interested in, and that is both because of the cost. The professional ROVs cost at least 100 times as much as the Blueye Pioneer. And the second thing is because it's really heavy and bulky and you wouldn't be able to bring it along. And the third thing is it's really not fun to use. They have not had the user in mind when they were designing the product. It's mainly designed to solve a practical challenge or issue.
So when did you decide that you were going to start a new company?
As I moved along with my master thesis, I decided that I wanted to found a company, and somehow I started to look around me, like who are the other ones who could be interested in working with me on this. And I was extremely lucky because I found this group of students and professors at NTNU, the University in Trondheim, who were working on something similar. And so I invited myself up and I brought my little underwater drone. And I met with Eric, who is now the CEO of Blueye, and also a couple of professors who also joined the foundation of Blueye. And one of them is our CTO. So it really went very quickly from after that first visit. I went back up once again. We were testing out my drone and the drone that their students had developed. And we were talking about how are we going to go along with this. And we were really puzzled, I think, to figure out that we were actually sharing the same visions. All of us, we really wanted to make the ocean available for everyone. And we were looking into developing and create this tool that would make us able to do that. I think that is an important part of, like, when you start a company as well, you need to get well along with your co-founders. And we did.
That is a very important component, putting together the right team with the right personalities and the expertise.
Yes, exactly. So in the beginning, it was just 4 of us, and we were very lucky to get an angel investor with us from the beginning, who believed in the idea, and he also believed in the team and in our vision and in our first solution. And from them, we had very high focus on establishing and building a team that could go along with this, because these are quite complex matters that we're working with. So to build a team and attract the people that had the competence that we didn't already have within the team, we needed someone who were experts on software, because this is not only a hardware product. This is also an application and user interface. It is data handling and sharing of video and images, and there's a whole software platform surrounding the hardware product. One of the first things we did was to make sure that we got a really well software department in our company. And as we moved along, that is pretty much how we've been working. We've been searching for people who had the competence that we didn't have ourselves, and best people within each field. And I think we've been lucky to work with something that really triggers the curiosity and passion in people, because that has enabled us to get our hands on people who came from really high salary or high paid jobs to go along with a startup like us and be part of this adventure that we're actually creating, developing the Blueye Pioneer. It's a dream for all of the people in the company to make this happen and to make this come true.
In a sense, what you've created for all of us is that same experience that you had when you were a child looking through the mask into the water. How do you feel about extending that experience to others?
I think it's the best thing I could ever do. Every day when I'm working with Blueye, it's just extremely exciting. No day is alike. I go to work, or usually I'm actually traveling around and establishing a whole network and ecosystem around Blueye. I happen to be sort of like the face of the company outwards. So I get to meet with a lot of people and talk about the whole vision and the idea and the story around Blueye and where we see ourselves and where we want to go, like in 1 year, in 10 years, and so on. And I meet so much enthusiasm and so much passion and so much curiosity and like-minded people all around, because the ocean is unexplored. It's the last frontier on Earth. It's only about 10% of it that has been discovered. And I think that triggers something in more people than just me. I think I was not the only kid who was diving on surface with my scuba mask. It seems that we're a lot of us. But I'm truly grateful that I get to have my passion as my job. Yeah, so I think when I was a kid, I probably imagined that I would actually spend so much time in or by or on the ocean as I do today. I also live on a sailboat, so it's mostly ocean, and I hope there's just going to be more.
What do you love most about the ocean?
Especially when I have the Blueye, I love that I cannot see immediately what I'm going to find. It's always something new or something unexpected. And what I love about the ocean, I just love being near it. It's something that just feels really good. I'm not sure if I'm able to explain it, but I'm an active sailor. I'm surfing, I'm diving, I'm doing the exploration with the Blueye, and I think it's all about to be part of something that is sort of bigger. And I also think the fact that the ocean doesn't belong to any country, at least when you go 200 nautical miles off the coast, it's like international waters, and it's like a bigger world. And knowing that the ocean is covering about 70% of the earth, and we're so focused on everything that's happening on shore, when there's so much exciting stuff happening in the ocean and we know so little about it. I think it's both the curiosity and the fact that I don't know what to expect, and you're so close to an element that you can't control.
What has this whole experience of starting Blueye Robotics taught you?
Never be afraid, and never think that you're not going to make it or that you're too small in the bigger picture. Like what we've actually done with Blueye that I think is different than many other startups is that we were thinking big and we're thinking global from the beginning. And we have never let anything stop us from just go ahead, just try, just make the first prototype and test it out. And if it's not going to work, then just continue, just do it again, make the improvements. And the same thing comes on the business side of the company. Like if you get a no the first time you ask for funding or for partnerships, then look for another partner, then ask another investor, because you have to believe in what you're doing. And then I think that's really visible. That's easy to see for everyone around you. You're actually putting everything into this, and you're not going to give up just because you meet one door.
So how do you feel things are going?
I am confident that we have something that people will want and that there's a need for it. And I'm relying, and I'm really happy to be on the team that I'm on. I'm really confident that we're going to make it.
And my final question, Christine, what do you hope Blueye's impact will be on the world and on people?
I believe that Blueye is just going to be the first and just one of many more solutions to come that will bring us all into a greater understanding of the ocean. And so then I'm talking about sort of an ocean platform where we can all contribute with data, with findings, and with whatever we learn and share it. And I know that might sound really fluffy, but I think that democratizing the ocean, which is what we're actually doing by enabling everyone to go down and to explore and to collect data. I think that is what if I look at just a couple of years ahead, drones will probably be equipped with more sensors, so you're enabled to collect useful data for scientists and for decision makers to actually understand and to protect the ocean in a greater way. And I hope that we will contribute to make people understand how important it is to take care of the ocean, and that the ocean is actually providing us with what it is, which is vital resources such as food and energy and medicines, and not to mention over half of the oxygen that we're breathing. I think that is something that most people don't think too much about, but I think as soon as you have the tool, an easy way to very easily just connect through your own smartphone and see what's going on and what's the status of today. How's the ocean doing? And how's that affecting me? I hope that's where we're going to be just a few years ahead.
That's it for episode 110 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Christine Spiten of Blueye Robotics and learning about exploring the oceans with the Blueye Pioneer underwater drone. I want to thank Christine for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Blueye Robotics, the Blueye Pioneer drone, or want to connect with Christine, check out the website at blueyerobotics.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the costs of production. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research, and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.